All right. Hey there. I'm Paulino B Michael, and welcome to the Flat Out Truth. So, we do have a special guest that's going to be speaking today. We're going to have an interview. But I just want to first say we have to mention Charlie Kirk. We know everything that happened with that. And the ongoing information. But there's so much hate towards a man, in my opinion, that planted a lot of seeds for the youth of this country to get out and vote, to grab their Bible, to be more moral, like compass and minded of doing the right thing. It's really strange to me that everybody's attacking him and saying that he's this, he's that, he wasn't really this or that, and I just don't get it. I mean, the proof is by his fruits. All these young people are now grabbing the Bible, voting, and caring about the country in the moral compass of all of our communities, actually. So I just don't understand it. And it's very sad to see this and people saying that it was okay that this happened to him and things like that. There's no call for that. If you disagree with them or for whatever reason, you should debate him then. And people didn't like doing that because he would slaughter them. He was good at it. He was good at saying that and getting the points out, and he could recall. He was really good at debating. So, yeah, I just don't understand that. But anyway, it's sad. And I'm gonna bring my wife, my helpmate, and clicker of all buttons, Chelsey B Michael.
Hi guys, welcome. I am Chelsey B Michael. I am back, the clicker of all buttons.
So what do you think about how, like, what we've been seeing all over the social media? Isn't it horrible?
Yeah, there's a few camps, and you got the good, bad, and the conspiracy, right?
I'd say real ugly.
That's fair.
Yeah.
And it's I think the best thing that you say, and you've said this to me, is you do have to judge them by their fruits. So a hypothetical, this is supposed to be an evil person. It's like, but so much good has come out of it. And the Most High turns the best into the brightest, and it turns the worst into something better. So I think people have to take that into account. And this is, I think, really hit home, probably with you, definitely with me, in light of recent events for us. You know, we had a little girl recently, and that's all I can think about is now she doesn't get to see her dad. And that's, I think, one of the hardest things. So,
yeah. Not her dad. I'm her dad.
Well, not
She's
ours.
talking about Charlie Kirk's.
Yeah. He's got two little ones.
Yeah, two little ones. So, yeah, it's really sad. Like, people forget that he's still a father and a husband. And he did right by him. He supported them, make sure that they had everything they needed. And he sacrificed himself, really.
Yeah.
For things that he believed in. And things that he was believing in wasn't horrible. It's not like he just wanted the country to be prosper for everybody and safe, and that's all he really wanted. And when he brought up the Bible, he never pushed a doctrine on anybody. He was like, just pick it up and read it for yourself, and it's going to lead you wherever it needs to take you. He never really pushed an agenda on that. And he's like, hey, go out and vote, learn about, the Constitution or your rights and all these other things that people should be seeking out the truth for themselves and not just relying on memes. I see all these memes that aren't even real. They're proven to be AI'd, and like all these conspiracies and things like that. It's like they've been doctrined. And if anybody's a truth seeker that believes some of these memes, put them into AI and it'll tell you they've been altered by AI. Like, the real footage has been altered. And so once you do that, it's tampered with. How do you just keep promoting it and promoting the hate? I just don't understand. And I put it out there. If you guys are a follower of me, I don't care if you're my friend from volleyball or any other thing, art. If you are this type of person, I don't even want you on mine. I want to edit my virtual circle. You guys can kindly leave. And I'll just put it to that. But I do think that we should take a moment in silence for Charlie and his family and for the truth-seeking movement, man. We just want things better for everyone. Regardless if you like them or not, they still have the right to have a good life, right? So after she's done clicking, we'll do the moment of silence. All right. So let's see if we can get our guest. So Katherine Henry. I see her there. Let's see. Hopefully everything works out good with the audio. There she is.
Yeah.
Oh,
Beautiful.
yeah. Hey, that must be the same one I used for the picture for the background for our ad. Can you hear us? Is the audio good?
It's changing. It's going back and forth between my computer and the microphone. So give me a second here.
Okay. So we might be able to touch on Charlie with you. I don't know if you probably would know him, but man, I just cannot believe all the stuff that's going on, and it's really sad. Still life, and it seems like nobody cares about life. So, very interesting.
Sorry, I'm trying to figure out what's going on, because it's one thing if it stays with one thing and I could roll with it, but when it's going back and forth, then it's
Yeah.
and it makes it a little challenging. Okay.
All right, yeah, testing. Is it working?
I don't get it. Why is it not?
Everybody in YouTube. So there's Kristen. Looks like Marcus is there.
Yeah, because we can hear you loud and clear.
Yeah,
so I want to make sure.
Right on this side.
Thumbs up in the chat if audio is good.
Is audio good? Marcus, you're our man on YouTube there. It seems like I don't hear an echo or anything. So.
Okay. Yeah, I think it's good.
All right.
Perfect.
Good. Nice. So I know we want to talk about some other stuff, but we didn't know about this event that was happening with, yesterday with Charlie Kirk. What do you think? Do you have any anything to say about it or any opinions?
I do have opinions. I guess it's hard for me to try to focus on this and have something productive to say because it's, yes, he's only one person. Yes, we are losing people every day in this country to unnecessary violence, but he was someone that was a bright light in the darkness. Excuse me. And with what I do, in a lot of ways, he was trying to do what I try to do, but he had a much bigger platform. And so it just kind of, knowing somebody was out there trying to do the same thing and who had that bigger platform and had, millions of followers and was just very successful at it. It was very encouraging for someone like me to keep doing the behind the scenes, more so fight for freedom and to continue to help in the ways that I was helping. So to lose that I don't know, he was kind of like a combining force too, like just where a lot of people who are in the freedom movement, a lot of people who are Christians, people that fight for the right to life and things like that. He was like the gel that kind of, the commonality between a lot of people that fight in each of those avenues or each of those movements. So to have somebody like that be taken so young and in such a grotesque fashion is hard. And, even for me today, I'm trying to work on this huge United States Supreme Court petition. And, it's taking me a lot longer than I want to, and I'm a lot farther behind in it than I would like to be. And I'm just I'm still not at 100% after all the cancer surgeries and everything that I was going through. And so I already had like this huge burden on me, but my brain all day long kept going back to Charlie Kirk and what is his wife going through and how is she going to tell, her tiny little children about this? And, does he have siblings and how are his parents handling it? And what is this going to mean for the freedom movement and, the right to life movement and all these other things. So I'm actually trying hard not to focus on that right now because I have deadlines with the U.S. Supreme Court that once I miss them and they're gone.
Yeah.
But,
anyway. We know that. I mean, and that's it, the show must go on. That's what he would want. Anything that he could do to push something, he would tell you to step aside and keep going. He's not going to be the type that would tell you, oh, give it all up for me. There'll be time to go reminisce about him and when you're done. And it'll be great. I mean, he is shooting everywhere, even 10 times more than he ever was. It's almost like they made him more powerful. They just did. I mean, his little clips here and there are just like going everywhere now. It's sad that I even have to defend the man that his fruit was so good. Like even if you didn't, you disagreed with him and stuff like that. I mean, the movement. If you're in any kind of constitution, right, and voting, you already know that all the youth that he got to go vote is just ridiculous.
Yeah.
So it's really sad. But we can get into who you are. I know this is we were trying not to take away from you, obviously, but we just thought it had to be said, and I think you agree. I can tell. So here she is, guys. We actually met her, but you want to come on, babe? But we heard about her in like 2020ish, right? Wasn't it?
Yep.
Yeah, because she was in Michigan at the time. We live in Michigan, and we seen her live, and something happened, and we were like, "Wow, is this real?" And then she was fighting for the rights that she knows that we all have, and whatever she wants to talk about when it comes to that. Do you have anything to say about that, babe?
Just as an introduction, I said she's a constitutional attorney, and from what I had found originally is there was such a big movement going around and trying to keep an eye on voting and polls and things like that, especially because Michigan is a swing state, and so you were helping part of that, and you had just gotten called in to help, and so that's how we first found out everything. So
yeah.
Actually, it's not exactly what was going on, and I don't know if it's just your mic is really loud again to me today, so I don't know if anybody else has it. But you're not in labor anymore, so
I am not.
No, she's not.
No, thank goodness.
But yeah, in 2020, I actually authored the Restore Freedom Initiative petition. And we had volunteers at precincts all across the state, and on election day, we were gathering signatures before that, but we had volunteers at polling precincts all across the state on election day, November 3rd, 2020. And as the author of the petition, I was the lead counsel for it as well. And even though I made a cheat sheet, if you will, of all the laws and the constitutional provisions and things that were relevant, and we instructed our volunteers on the things they could do and couldn't do, and that kind of thing for election day, and prepared them, we knew that there would be some precincts where our volunteers were wrongly that people would attempt to shut them down or stop them from collecting signatures and that kind of thing. So I made myself available all day to be able to field those phone calls. And I actually had at least 2 other stops I needed to make, but I decided to go to Allegan County first. And it was about an hour from my house at the time in Hudsonville, and packed up my then 6-year-old daughter. She's now 11, and drove down there. And I spoke with a deputy on the phone first, and tried to get him to see the light and do the right thing, and realized that the people there circulating the petition had every right to be there. They were more than twice as far away as they needed to be. You have to be 100 feet away from the doors of the polling precincts in Michigan, and they were 228 feet away. So they were more than enough away, and that's really the only thing. As long as you're that far away, then you could talk to whoever. You can ask people if they want to sign a petition or whatever. But they weren't like going out and talking to people. They had their vehicle set up with a sign, a little table and a sign right at their vehicle, and they allowed people to walk over to them. And they were actually set up in a way that it was opposite of where the polling precinct doors were. So if you parked in the parking lot and you walked up over to vote and you came back out to your car, you could go back to your car. Every single person could go back to their car without having to directly pass where this booth was, if you will, where the setup was. They were on the far edge of the parking lot so that they were not in the way at all. They weren't, intimidating or pressuring anybody to get their signatures. I mean, it was the most laid back positioning you could possibly imagine. And yet the township clerk didn't want them there. And it was, in a lot of ways, there was a setup going on because AG Nessel had already set her sights on me, and so did Whitmer, because at the same time, I was also fighting them in the Court of Appeals and the Michigan Supreme Court. I was submitting amicus briefs. I had just argued in the Michigan Supreme Court. Let's see, I think oral argument it was moved initially, but I want to say we had it around the second week of September in 2020 against the governor's executive orders, and I was a part of that. And then October 2nd, 2020, I believe it was a Friday, we got the decision that came out from the Michigan Supreme Court, and it wasn't as strong of a win as I wanted and what I was advocating for. But I was advocating for them to shut down any possibility of her turning around and using the public health code next, because I knew she was going there. And voila, she did. The second that her orders, the powers to issue her orders, were recognized as null and void under the Emergency Management Act and the Emergency Power of Governor Act of 1945. As soon as all of that was taken away, then what did she do? She went straight to the public health code and started issuing those emergency orders, just more ugly EOs under a different statute. And, I don't know why they didn't just handle it right away. That would have solved a lot of things if they would have done what I was asking them to do and declare it all unconstitutional, because no statute can tell you to shut your business down like that. No statute can tell you can't go see loved ones. No statute can deny you medical care. No statute can make you, or executive order, none of that can make you wear a mask or, be forced into medical treatment or anything like that. And all the things that she was doing in her orders were unconstitutional, with the exception of making modifications to things like, if you need, an extension for getting a driver's license because you might be, if you have an immunocompromised system and you're trying to reduce the amount of times that you're going out in public, and maybe it's time you have to renew your driver's license and you need to get your picture taken or something like that. You have to go to the Secretary of State's office. Executive orders that make modifications and extensions for situations like that make sense. Or not that the courts should ever have closed, but to the extent that a government office or something like that, or a court is closing, having an executive order that maybe pushes deadlines out because of those governmental offices being closed, that makes sense, right? But definitely not when it comes to telling we the people, that you can't do something. You can't go see your loved ones. You can't have a party. You can't have a wedding. You can't have more than 6 people gathered. Oh, we have this new order. Now you can't have more than 10 people gathered. Oh, now you can't have more than 20. Well, you can have 20 if it's at this kind of facility at this time of day, but you can't have, and then you could sit outside. You could sit outside in these little pods and bubbles, but you can't sit, inside. Or if you sit inside, then you have to wear a mask. But as soon as you sit down, the COVID goes away. So you don't have to wear a mask anymore. So anyway, all that nonsense is what I was fighting in court, and what my petition, if we had been able to get the signatures needed, we had a few 100,000 signatures, but we needed to get, it was something like 435,000 or something. And we didn't quite get enough to get it on the ballot. But if we had gotten on the ballot, we would have, we would have made significant changes, and Michigan would look a lot different today. I can tell you that.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure we signed that actually.
Yeah, I think we did sign it actually.
Yeah.
We got 2.
Yeah, we only had 2 at the time.
Hey, every vote counts.
That's true.
So, yeah, so like we know you have a podcast, and you were on just the other day, and Chelsey was listening to you. It's funny because I can't remember because our days because of the birth. It's
a little mixed up.
So anyway, go ahead, Chelsey. You had some questions, right? About that.
Yeah. So I was gonna ask you, because you are also into the educational and the advocacy, have you share some of the things that you are doing to help with that?
That's kind of a big question. I'm not sure exactly what you want me to answer there.
Sorry.
Because you have your call-in show, and they probably ask all different types of questions, right?
Yeah. So, I mean, as far as the types of things I'm doing, I mean, for anybody who, found out about me in 2020, I had never spoken in like a mass, group before April 30th, 2020. That was my very first time speaking in front of, more than, I don't know, 25 people or something like that. And anybody who knows or who doesn't know, I'll just tell you that April 30th, 2020, I stood on the steps of the Michigan State Capitol, and I was one of several speakers that day. And we held the very first in-person rally to open back up the state and stop what the governor was trying to do. And so April 15th, there had been this, I don't know, rally or whatever, but everybody was in their cars. This was the first in-person rally. What's that?
Oh, no, it's not you. It's a technical.
Oh,
you're good.
Oh, okay. So anyway, that was the first time I ever spoke to a mass crowd before, and it really freaked me out. I almost got violently ill right before I went on stage because I was so nervous. But I knew that I needed to speak out, and I had been speaking out since for a month and a half since the governor first shut our state down. And I knew the first day she announced that, they were going to be closing schools for 3 weeks. I was like, yeah, this is not what she's just doing. This is the tip of the iceberg. And so I got to work right away, and I drafted a bunch of documents to educate people and inform people. And then I started getting involved in the lawsuits that the Michigan legislature was bringing against her. And I was actually trying to expose what a lot of the Republican legislators were even trying to do and vote on in 2020, such as when they voted to actually adopt the vast majority of her executive orders then in place, word for word. Yeah, shocker that the Republicans in power at that time would go along and try to do that. But I was speaking out. I didn't care if you had an R behind your name or a D behind your name. If you're trying to stomp all over our constitutionally protected God-given liberties, you were my target. And so at the time, there were no other attorneys speaking out, no other government officials speaking out. And I was not afraid to start speaking out. So I started doing just, video, started doing Facebook Lives. I'd never done a Facebook Live before. I started doing those. And later on in 2020, started doing YouTube when Facebook wasn't playing so nice. And they were trying to throttle my speeds of the video for some people to see and not others. It was crazy, all kinds of weird, crazy stuff. And so we branched out and we started doing more platforms, and I ended up doing like 300 speeches all over the state of Michigan and even outside of Michigan, just in 2020 alone, talking to all different groups of people about the law, the Constitution, the proper role of government, what executive orders are allowed to do and what they're not allowed to do, doing lots of question and answer sessions. And then the videos were talking about, telling people, okay, this new court case came out and this is what's going on. And, this is what Jocelyn Benson tried to do today, issuing this memorandum, or this is what, this is the new executive order that just came out and here's what it says and here's what you need to know about it and all kinds of stuff. And so 2020 and 2021, that's what I spent like every single day of my life doing. So we moved down to Florida in 2021, and at the beginning of 2022, as we started to get a little bit settled in, I decided that I would just do a weekly show. At the time, it was actually every single Tuesday. Now it's twice a month on Tuesdays. But we go live at noon Eastern Standard Time. And it used to be on tons of platforms, but it's, when there's not enough donations to go around, you do what you can with what you have. So now I don't multi-stream. I just stream to YouTube. And then it goes on podcasting platforms and stuff like that afterwards. But it also used to be a show where I'd have a guest and we'd have a topic and I'd go through and I'd have like a whole PowerPoint and I'd go through and have like this whole big thing planned out and thought about and stuff. And then I realized that my goal is just to educate people, whether you're in government, whether you're a citizen and you just want to know about how to defend your freedoms, whatever the case is, because, people that are running for office, people that are in office often just have questions. There are good people in office and they just need help. So I pivoted my show maybe about a year ago or so. I don't quite remember when, but started doing call-in. It's a call-in show now. So people can call in and I'd like it to be like 45 minutes to an hour, but it usually goes like an hour and a half to 2 hours. And I'm answering questions for people that they're running. I've had people running for sheriff up in Michigan, running for city council in Wisconsin, who do First Amendment auditing in Texas and Arizona. I've had zoning board of appeals members call me from Pennsylvania. I've had people call from New York and Alaska, California. I mean, all over the place, certainly Michigan and Florida, because that's where a lot of people that personally know me and get, interested in what I do and they watch the show that way. But my goal is still to try to educate people on how to best handle issues and how to remain constitutional in your principles when you're serving in office. As well as, like I said, if you're an individual and you just need to know how to defend your rights. So we've talked about all kinds of things, best practices for if you're, trying to do First Amendment auditing or, how to best support candidates that are running for office that you believe would actually support your values. How to respond in a court case or, how to represent yourself in court. What are the main motions that get filed? What does an appeal look like? What can you file an appeal over and how does that process work? We've talked about enacting statutes and what that process looks like, how to testify at legislative hearings. I myself have testified at several legislative hearings on important issues, medical freedom, parental rights, Second Amendment issues. There's a wide gamut of things. I have a lot of other stuff that's mostly available all through my website, which is, I think you guys might have it on the bottom there.
Oh yeah. Now, were you always a constitutional lawyer, or how'd you start out? That's what we're really, I was like, man, I don't even know how she started out. Like, is this something that you just fell into it? You were doing something else first in law and then went over, or?
So every attorney should be a constitutional attorney.
Yes. If
you are an attorney, you should know the Constitution. But I'm going to let you in on a secret to anybody watching here. Most attorneys don't actually know anything about the Constitution. They know a little bit. They know enough to be dangerous with it, but they don't know it. And they certainly couldn't tell you as much as any kid who reads the Tuttle Twins books, about the Bill of Rights or the 14th Amendment or, what does Article 1 do? What does Article 2 do? What does Article 3 do? That kind of stuff. and I don't know it as well as I should, because I feel like I should know it. I should have it memorized. I should know it frontward and backward. I mean, as it is right now, I just have, a dusty old copy with tons of tabs and highlighted marks and things like that. Of course, I have my state constitution printed out. I have the Michigan Constitution, the Florida Constitution, tons of things highlighted and tabbed in there. And anyway, so most attorneys don't. And I started advocating on all kinds of legal issues that you could say the underdog. I wanted to help the underdog. I've always been the underdog. I haven't had, this vast team of people supporting me. I've never had, tons of money. I didn't come from money. I was the first person in my immediate family to go to any kind of graduate school or law school. And so at any rate, and I, in college, in my junior year of college, I also I became a single mom. And so I put myself through law school as a single mom. And it was one of the hardest things I've ever done, most exhausting. I'm already wanting a nap right now, just remembering those 3 years of law school. But anyway, it was, even at that time, I was advocating for the underdog, but I wasn't necessarily focusing on particular constitutional issues. And it was mostly family law, but, a lot of other types of things. When I opened my practice in Midland, Michigan in 2008, I was doing everything under the sun. I was doing landlord tenant and contracts and business issues, real estate, bankruptcy, of course, family law, custody and divorce, child support, parenting time, things like that. Really everything other than medical malpractice or, IP stuff, because oftentimes you need, the patent bar is its own thing. It's not, the typical attorney can't do patents. So, I did a lot of everyday types of law, if you will. And I think it was for a reason. I think it was to help me really find out what the problems are, the day-to-day problems with our government and our courts and the legislature, and how government really has its fingers on everything in our lives, and how the more they try to fix, the more problems they actually create. And so just working with people day in and day out and seeing that. And I've also been a mediator. I've actually been a mediator longer than I've been an attorney, and I've mediated thousands of cases of all different kinds. But anyway, so I kind of brought all that experience into when I ran for state rep 10 years ago. And then I started learning a little bit more about some significant constitutional issues, like, for example, vaccine choice. I'd never even known that was a thing. I was, because my older kids are in their 20s. It was a totally different schedule than it is now. And so when you run for office, different groups will send you like the NRA and the Insurance Association and the Chamber of Commerce associations and the Right to Life and whatever, all these organizations, Michigan for Vaccine Choice, and all the places, no matter what state you're in, you'll have organizations that they're like, oh, you're running for state office? Oh, well, we want you to fill out our questionnaire, and we want to figure out if you're a candidate we would like to support. And I think it's a great way to do it. And it opened my eyes to different issues. And so I was like answering the questions going, oh my gosh, yeah, yeah, I didn't realize that was an issue. I ended up being endorsed by, I got an A+ rating with the NRA and the whatever, all the different the gun rights groups and all the freedom groups. I'll just put it that way. I answered the questions all correctly. And it got me thinking, though, about, I want to get more involved in this. So when I didn't end up winning the election, I joined up with a firm, a nonprofit firm, the Great Lakes Justice Center. And I became one of their staff attorneys, if you will. I mean, we were all volunteer. But I started working on cases with them at the U.S. Supreme Court and in Michigan, and working on some policy issues. And so I did that for a few years with them. And then all of a sudden 2020 happened, right? And I was like, we need to do more. And unfortunately, the leadership at the Great Lakes Justice Center didn't agree with me that we should be out there telling people that they don't have to follow the executive orders. They thought everybody should follow them, and then we just fight about it in court later. And I said, hell no, that's not how this works. We, the people, we don't have to beg for our rights back in a court after we've let them be stripped from us. No, we need to stand up and fight for our rights now. I'm not going to sit here and tell people they have to follow an unconstitutional executive order. Never. So we parted ways. And ironically enough, they continued to fight some of the cases in the freedom movement since that time on various issues, but not as strongly and vehemently as I do about the Constitution. Basically, the argument was, well, that's just not how we do it. That's just not the way it's done. And my response to that is, that's the problem. Why would we keep doing things the same way that has allowed us to get to this point? You know what I mean?
Yeah, because it's slid down to this point. So now this is the status quo. But originally, this was not the way it was done either.
Yeah. Now it sounds like you became a jack of all trades of like all the, like you said, the freedom laws, right? So that's pretty awesome though, because you kind of dabble in everything. So it's kind of like how we are here, right? Yeah. Truth or nothing. So.
A little bit of everything.
Yeah, and I oftentimes since 2020, it wasn't during 2020, but like at the tail end of 2020, I started talking with some of the core group of volunteers that we had with the Restore Freedom petition, like, hey, what should I do going forward? And, they all became good friends. Some of them were family. My husband and my dad would be the actual family members that were part of that core team, but just constantly like, hey, what should I do? I feel like I need to keep going. This is not over. Clearly it's not over just because 2020 is over. But I feel like I need to be more, I need to narrow down somehow. Like, do I just focus on medical freedom issues? Do I focus on Second Amendment issues? Do I focus on freedom of speech and petitioning and religion and all that, like, First Amendment issues? What do I focus on? Because you can't be everything to everyone. And unfortunately, I still haven't figured out which one, if any, I'm supposed to focus on. I feel like I need to. But I mean, every time I think about walking away from, okay, there's a lot of Second Amendment advocates out there. I don't need to be in that mix. I don't need to be fighting that fight. But yet I want to be able to open carry or concealed carry wherever I go and know that I'm not going to get tripped up with some bogus felony or misdemeanor charge because I carried it in the wrong way at the wrong time, the wrong place, or somebody saw it or they didn't see it, or you know what I mean?
Yeah.
In Michigan, you can open carry without a permit, but you cannot concealed carry without a permit. And I was a Michigan concealed carry permit holder, but I didn't agree with the philosophy. I just knew I was getting death threats because of all the work that I was doing. So it was actually, I think it was the day I argued in the Michigan Supreme Court, Mike and I went to the courthouse and turned in our paperwork to get our CPL in Michigan. But anyway, in Florida, I moved down here and I have roots down here too. When my parents got divorced in the 80s, I mean, I know I look like I'm 20, but anyway, when my parents, you're not supposed to laugh too much at that. But anyway, when my parents got divorced,
it was a gesture more than the look.
Yeah, I agree with that.
My mom moved down here to Florida. My dad stayed in Michigan, so I went back and forth between the two states. So they've both been home basically my whole life. But I never knew much about laws down here. I mean, as a kid, right? So as an adult, we didn't move down here. Mike and I didn't move down here until 2021, July of 2021. And down here, it's the opposite. Down here, you can Well, actually, when we moved down in 2021, the law was you cannot open carry unless you're fishing or hunting. If you're at a place fishing or hunting, then you can carry. But anyway, you can't open carry. You could only concealed carry if you had a permit. And I thought, yeah, I don't know. This seems really shady to me. I don't want to get involved. I don't want any more government. I don't want to get any more government permission to do anything that I have the right to do as just a human being. So anyway, we did not do permits down here. And then the law changed. I want to say it was 2 years ago. I testified in Tallahassee. I'm so proud of myself that I'm finally saying Tallahassee, because all these years I've continued to say Lansing, even though I mean Tallahassee now, but my new state capital. And I testified on the bill that was supposed to bring constitutional carry according to the NRA. Now, it doesn't fully bring it back. There's still a lot of, what do you call it? Red flag garbage and age restrictions and this and that. And, you can't be here and you can't be there and whatever. And all that stuff needs to go. And I advocated that they fix the bill before they voted on it, which they didn't do. But anyway, what we did get was you can now concealed carry in Florida without a permit as long as you are legally able to get a permit. So, we've been able to do that. But if you haven't seen, I shared a post on my social media. Actually, I might have just shared it on Facebook. I don't think I actually shared it across social media yet. But yesterday, in the midst of all the darkness that there was in the way that Charlie was murdered, yesterday did have a little bit of light shine, and that is down here in Florida. The court system is a bit different than in Michigan and, quite frankly, all the other states. In most cases, the court of last resort is in most states, it's the Supreme Court. Like in Michigan, it's the Michigan Supreme Court. Down here, the court rule and the Constitution have been amended so that your last stop, if you will, in a court case, for most cases, is actually the Court of Appeals. And they're separate districts, which is also weird because one district doesn't control the other, but they kind of do. So at any rate, not in my district. We're in the 5th District Court of Appeals, which is where I just had my case against the city of Ormond Beach before now going to the U.S. Supreme Court. But anyway, in the 1st District Court of Appeals, yesterday in the state of Florida, the 1st District Court of Appeals issued a ruling saying that our statute that stops you or tries to ban you from open carrying is unconstitutional. So sheriffs around the state are starting to send out press releases. I've seen 2 myself saying, I've instructed my deputies that they cannot make any arrests for open carrying, given, what this ruling says. And I think that's good. We need to have more of them do that. But at any rate, wow, I have no idea how I got on that rabbit trail, but
it's all right. It's all good information, really. I mean, it is. It's not like it's not interesting. So,
yes.
I mean, it's so complex now because of the way the world is, at least in our country, has went so whacked off of the Constitution. It's hard to get everything in now. It's like, because people don't really know. It's like, it's the we said so people now versus what's the truth. So, I mean, you're battling people that don't really know anything. Like, there's so many police officers, sheriffs, or whatnot that don't know the Constitution at all. They just go by what they're told, and that's it. Now, Chelsey, you had something you wanted to ask her, right?
I was just gonna say, because I was wondering what your favorite court case was while you were working, and because you said you couldn't pick a topic, so I was wondering what the one you thought was most successful in terms of like leading that constitutional movement.
I don't know. Because I'd have to pick a topic. I have no idea. I mean,
you said I can't pick a topic, and I was like, oh no, it's gonna be a big question.
I guess let me put it this way. I have not come across any case, one that I've worked on or one that other attorneys have worked on, where in the last 5 years, I have seen any court just outright completely do the right thing, except for potentially the case I just mentioned from yesterday's ruling in the First District Court of Appeals down here in Florida. I have not had a chance to actually see the opinion myself and read the whole thing. So there could be some really good stuff there. I mean, obviously, I agree with the outcome, but I don't know if there's other parts that they're like, well, we could actually, restore your freedoms in this sense, but we're not going to do that. We're only going to do this part. I don't know. So I guess what I mean by that is, like, for example, I mentioned earlier how we won the case in October 2020 in the Supreme Court of Michigan against the governor's executive orders, but the Supreme Court, they hemmed and hawed, and the lead opinion just didn't come out and just say, what the hell are you doing? You don't have the right to do this to people. There's, regardless of what a statute says, you don't have the right to do this. The Constitution stops you from doing this. That's what they should have said. Of course, they didn't say anything remotely close to that. And like I said, they didn't address the, inevitable of her doing the orders under the Public Health Code, just picking a different statute, which is just as unconstitutional. So, that was frustrating. It was a win, but it was frustrating, and I saw it coming. And, even the Dobbs case, the abortion case it was either 2 or 3 years ago. I think it's 2 years ago. It was a win, but it was a tiny win, because what they should have come out and said, and it should not be political. This should be just, how about we read the words of the Constitution? Nowhere in there does it tell you you have the right to kill anyone, even if they're dependent upon you in order to live. Nowhere. You can't murder anybody that's on a ventilator. You can't take out somebody because they're disabled. You can't, a child, a nursing baby, nowhere. So there's no distinction between there. And so what the Constitution does say, though, is that you have the right to life. And it says it more than once.
Yeah.
So with that, I mean, the right to life is literally written into the words of the Constitution, and yet they didn't hammer on that in the Dobbs case. And the fact that they left it up to the states, how can you leave it up to the states if it's a constitutionally protected right? No state has the authority, the actual constitutional authority, to allow people to take away life. So it was a very tiny win. It was a sad, pathetic win. And same thing with the New York rifle case. New York rifle, the Bruin, the New York rifle. That, it was a win for the Second Amendment, but they took page upon page upon page to talk about, well, what was historically, in order to say what the Second Amendment would allow, you have to look at what kinds of laws were already in place, what kinds of regulations were already in place at the time that the Second Amendment was put in place. No, you have to look at what the Constitution says. You have the right to keep and bear arms, period. It's not complicated. So it's disturbing to me that some of our biggest wins throughout, the last few years, especially, I mean, these are monumental wins. They're disgusting. They're nowhere near what they should be.
Yeah.
And yet all these freedom advocates are like so excited about these cases. And I'm like, really? That's all you got? That's all you're doing for us? So, and if anybody wants to know more about those cases that were, especially the ones from 2 years ago, when I was doing my weekly show, I actually talked about some of those big ones in quite detail in my show. So, you can go to my YouTube channel, you can go to my website. My website's probably the easiest, and type in, Second Amendment or 2A, and you'll see a bunch of videos, or type in Dobbs and you'll be able to see me, the videos that I was talking about and giving, I was pulling out quotes and talking about what those portions of the opinions mean, and what are the ramifications and implications to all this stuff. So if anybody is interested in that level of detail, I do have that on quite a few of those cases from recent cases. But so it, it's hard for me to say that I really ever have in my entirety of all cases that I've ever read in my whole life, which is thousands of court cases, front to back, start to end. I mean, every single word. I don't have a favorite because not a single one has really done it justice to keep it simple and straightforward and just stick to the Constitution. Our courts from the beginning have always acted like they have a more inherent power than they do. And it actually makes me think of something that a lot of people talk about. And we mentioned this the other day when we did our run through. You mentioned about a common law court case. And if it's okay with you guys, I actually wanted to talk a little bit about common law because I think there's a lot of misconceptions about what it is, whether it's good, whether it's bad. What are the implications?
I just have one question. So do you think a lot of this is because of the lack of knowledge of all the people? And that's why like there's not enough pressure on the courts to keep it up. Do you know what I mean? Because people don't know the common or the constitutional laws, and so they don't really realize how their rights are being manipulated or overlooked in a way that the courts don't really care because there's no pressure. Does that make sense?
I think there's a lot of things going on. I think all these ways that our rights are being trampled, it's because it's a snowball effect. So the more we let it happen, then the more it will happen. And if they take this, then they're going to take that. And if we let them take this and compromise here, then they're going to take more and expect us to compromise over there. And we're giving up more and more and more. And so it's at this point, we have had generation after generation after generation of people that all of us as people we have this concept that there's the government and we have to do what the government says. And, that the government, we're basically taught that they're the authority. And so, just like you're taught in school that you have to obey the teacher and you have to obey the principal and you have to, follow the rules, school rules and things like that. We're taught that as members of society, we just have to follow all the laws and all the rules and all the regulations. There's a few problems with that, though. One is there's so many, not one single person, not even someone as insanely intelligent and intellectually gifted as Charlie Kirk, not even someone like him, can possibly ever know all the statutes that are on the books in our country, let alone all the court rules, let alone all the federal regulations or state level regulations, or, basically administrative rules and regulations, or, all the other unwritten types of things. There's so many things out there that are considered the law that not one single person, literally ever, not one single person alive today, I can promise you, no one knows what all the laws are. And that is something that we need to change. By the time I die someday, and hopefully it's a long time from now, just because I know this is going to take me a long time to get this accomplished. We need to have only so many laws on the books that you can actually learn them all by the time, from 9th grade through 12th grade. By the time you graduate from high school, you need to learn what all the laws are so you can follow them, right? If there are more laws on the books than what you can learn from 9th grade through 12th grade, or if they're so complicated and convoluted that a 9th through 12th grader cannot understand them, they need to not be on the books, period. And I'm talking federal level, I'm talking state, local, doesn't matter. And I'm big corporations or, things that affect small companies, you need to have simple laws on the books. So, anyway, the problems that we have, if you think about it this way, that the complexity, the number of laws that are on the books, the fact that we've been taught that government is just this can do no wrong entity, that leads us to where we, the people, the general public, has this notion that, okay, well, we just answer to the government and we don't really get to question them a whole lot. And if you do question them, then boy, do they try to come after you, right? So, and luckily more and more people are doing that, but quite frankly, not enough. So yes, we need a lot more people standing up. We need a lot more people educating themselves first and then standing up and fighting for things. Because if you walk into a city council meeting and you want to have your all in a tiz because they're doing something, but you're not educated on what you're talking about. You're not telling them exactly what they're doing wrong and what they need to do to fix it, then you're actually becoming part of a problem. You're not being part of a solution. So we need people educating themselves and learning about the Constitution and not just listening to somebody else talk about it, but reading it for themselves and reading whatever relevant laws there are, reading those themselves, reading the documents themselves that they're going to be speaking on or advocating for or against. But so the other side to that is if you have this group of people, that's all of us, grow up where we have these misperceptions about things and we have this physical inability to ever learn all the laws that are on the books and all these kinds of things. Think about it. That's the same pool of people that you get lawyers and then judges and government officials from. So if you have lawyers and judges and government officials all coming from the same pool of people that you and I are in, of course, they're coming with the same preconceived notions. And this is just how we do things, which is, what I was told in 2020 when I had to part ways with that freedom fighting organization. So, it's frustrating that you have judges that don't really know the Constitution or that think that you have to have some sort of special hurdle or special event or special case in order just to apply it. And unfortunately, whether they mean to or not, I think we do have some bad actors that know better and they're choosing to do wrong. But by and large, the vast majority of situations we encounter are where you have judges, lawyers, or government officials who really don't understand that what they're doing is actually not constitutional. It is from a true lack of knowledge or misunderstanding about the proper role and form of government.
Now you're mentioning common law, so some people might not know the difference between the two, even though they're kind of the same. I mean, they go hand in hand a little bit, but
yeah. So common law, a lot of people talk about common law, and I have a good friend in particular who's in law enforcement. I won't mention his name, but he's in Michigan, and he talks about common law all the time, and he thinks it's the path to saving our freedom and having we the people have their voices back. What we need to realize, though, is that common law is definitely not what a lot of these freedom fighting advocates these days are thinking it is. Because a lot of people, more and more since 2020, like before 2020, most people didn't know anything about common law. Okay. Since 2020, a lot of people who have woken up to what the heck is the government doing here? And they know the government is doing wrong and they're overstepping their bounds and they want to bring things back to the constitutional origin of everything. We all have the same goal in mind. It's actually these people that I find I have to speak to the most about what common law really is and is it good or is it bad? Common law, and doesn't matter where you look it up. So Black's Law Dictionary, just so you guys know, in court cases in the legal world, Black's Law Dictionary is the go-to definition origins, right? If you want to look something up, you start there. If it's not there, you can look at any kind of other place, but you can look at Black's Law Dictionary, law.cornell.edu. That's a nationwide resources, a lot of free stuff on there for people. Just a free, legal-dictionary, thefreedictionary.com, the lawdictionary.org, dictionary.law.com. I mean, it doesn't matter where, you can just Google it, okay? What is common law? And you'll see the threads, the common threads and the themes throughout. Common law is literally unwritten, judge-made law from U.S. courts and Old English courts. So none of that sounds like it's freedom-loving, Constitution advocating type of, stuff, right? But that's what common law is. In fact, a lot of states, most states, either in their state constitutions, Michigan's state constitution acknowledges common law, but either in their state constitutions or in their state statutes, they recognize common law and its, I'll just say, ancient origins. And some of them go so far as to really recognize that it comes from Old England, right? Old English law. So Florida Statute 2.01 is an example, and it recognizes that common law is the judge-made law of England. So the statute it's like one paragraph long. It's actually one sentence long. That's just a long sentence. But it starts off, the common and statute laws of England. So the judge-made and the written statutes of England, which are of general and not a local nature, with the exception hereafter mentioned, down to the 4th of July, 1776, are declared to be in force in this state. That's a current law on the books here in the state of Florida, saying that we are adopting the common law of England before 1776 and making the common law as well as the written statutes part of laws that are enforceable here in the state of Florida. And that's essentially what the Constitution in Michigan says as well. I think it's Article 3, Section 7. It doesn't spell out that it's from England, but that's what they're talking about. So, but why is this a bad thing? There's a couple of things I mentioned about the definition. First of all, I want to point out Article 4, Section 4 of our U.S. Constitution guarantees us a republican form of government, right? We're not a democracy. We're not mob rule. We are a republican form of government. That means we, the people, elect representatives to do the daily tasks and functions of government, but we, the people, retain the ultimate control and authority over our government. We maintain sovereign authority, but we, the people, cannot maintain sovereign authority if we don't know what the heck's going on. If we are not told explicitly what law there is that's trying to regulate us, how can we possibly have people answer to us? The people that are enforcing the law, we're going to be answering to them because they hold all the power. They hold the knowledge, right? Unwritten law, common law, case law. A lot of people call it case law, but common law and case law are literally synonymous. Unwritten law, it does not comport with our constitutional republic because, well, it's unwritten. So some people think, well, yeah, but a lot of people like to cite to court cases. There's a guy who means well, Rick Martin. He is the Constitutional Law Group. He was a big advocate in a lot of different freedom scenarios in 2020 in Michigan and in different places across the country. He and I have talked on an individual basis several times. His heart is in the right place, but he and I totally disagree on the emphasis on common law because he loves to focus on court cases. I just came across one of his documents today that he has this list of all these court cases that he quotes from, and it's great. I use court cases to win court battles as well, but I'm gonna use their tools against them, right? If the government's gonna try to use that as a way to tell me I can or cannot do something, then I'm gonna use those tools to tell them they can or cannot do something. But I want us to think about something. Court cases might be fine and dandy. You know what, we mentioned earlier about the Dobbs case, and it helped in the right to life movement. The New York rifle case, it helped in the Second Amendment movement. We've had the Timms case. We've had I think it was Taylor v. Hennepin County, a case that came out of Minnesota, but it was about property rights, a takings clause case relating to property taxes and things like that. Very good case. Very good case. There's, the Harvard case that came out this year. I think it was earlier this year. I think it was the 2024 United States Supreme Court term. And that basically said affirmative action is a no-go. It's unconstitutional. It violates the right to equal protection. I mean, good case, right? We have all these cases that are good starts. But where do you go to find the law for common law? If it's so common, where do you find it? That's the problem. The United States Supreme Court alone has 11 different official reporters, depending on what year the case was decided. 11 different reporters. That's not just 11 different books. That's like 11 different companies, essentially, that can choose to report it in various different volumes and however that happens. 11 different ones that you have to try to trace down. Then there's 13 other federal court types that are each reported differently. You have courts of appeals, you have circuit courts, temporary emergency court of appeals, the U.S. Court of Appeals for the Federal Circuit, the U.S. Court of Federal Claims, the U.S. Court of International Trade, district courts, bankruptcy courts, tax court, veterans claims, armed forces courts. I mean, it goes on and on. Okay. Nowhere is it all compiled all together as the law. It's not together. All these court cases, all these decisions, you have to go and find them each in their own little home somewhere and compile things yourself for any particular given case you're working on or thing that you're fighting for. So that's a problem, right? Then, of course, state courts. Well, you have typically a Supreme Court, courts of appeals, circuit courts, district courts. Which ones are the ones responsible for actually creating the common law or the case law? Which ones are considered to making case law out of their decisions? It's typically not the trial court level. It's typically, like in Michigan, that's the district courts, the probate courts, the circuit courts. Those are trial court level. They're not making case law. They're just deciding things on a case-by-case basis. But you still have the courts of appeals, you have the Supreme Court. And where are all of those decisions all together that you can just find? Where's the law on Second Amendment issues or equal protection? There is not one law book put together of all of this. So another thing we have to think about is in a constitutional republic such as ours, we don't just have a republic, we have a constitutional republic. So that constitution is supposed to be the fundamental source for our entire framework of government. And in there, it explicitly lays out Article 1, Article 2, Article 3. Those are the powers of government. Article 1 is the legislative branch. Article 3 is the judicial branch. Article 1 specifically spells out that is the legislative power, the power to make laws. No laws are supposed to be made by the judicial branch. They're supposed to be deciding, well, I'm going to get to that in a minute. So judge-made law, case law, common law, it doesn't comport with a constitutional republic where laws are only allowed to be made through through the legislative branch. Sorry, 2020, I got hit over the head too many times with executive orders. I'm starting to feel like executive branches are allowed to make laws these days.
Yeah. Hey, you know what, though? We do have some more questions from both us and from the chat. However, we would like to speak freely. So we're actually going to move the show over to the Unchained, and then we can talk about pretty much anything. So our topics are unlimited, yes. And we don't have to censor for YouTube.
Yeah.
Because YouTube TikTok is for, all of our platforms are for entertainment purposes only.
That's right. Wink, wink.
Wink, wink.
So... yeah, we'll be jumping on to the Unchained. So if you guys want to keep this conversation going and keep getting in
let
deeper.
me do this.
Oh, yeah.
Let me do this.
Go for it.
I had one little last bit to wrap up that whole thought.
Sure.
I might as well just finish that, and then we could totally take a different, turn in the second part.
Oh, yeah.
But the last thing I want people to consider when thinking about whether common law is something that we want to look at is, everybody knows about it, but the Fifth Amendment and the 14th Amendment, and that's due process. Due process of law requires that you have a notice and opportunity to be heard. But if you have unwritten laws that are all, they're written all individually scattered throughout all these case reporters and things like that, not collected in one solid place like, statutes are, then how can you possibly have the notice requirement of due process if you aren't given notice of what the law is and what requirements you're being held to? So at any rate, I just want people to keep that in mind because what breaks my heart is that when freedom fighters are out there and they are advocating, we want the same thing. We all want the same thing. We want the Constitution to be followed. We want government officials to do only what they're allowed to do under the Constitution. We want people who violate the Constitution to be held accountable. And we want we the people to have our power back, to exercise our rightful authority here in our constitutional republic. We just need to make sure that we're on the same page about what the tools are at our disposal. And I think that a lot of people are out there throwing out red herrings and trying to get people distracted on, easy fixes, or if we just did this, or if we just did grand juries, or if we just did whatever all the things are, right? There's a Staples Easy button here, press it, and then all of our problems are fixed. We just need to be careful about that, because common law and case law is definitely not the Staples Easy button to attaining our freedom. It's actually burying us further under this, all these layers where the government has this control and the people don't. And we're farther away from even understanding what the laws are that they're trying to implement against us. So anyway, that's all the stuff I wanted to say about it. But it's such an important thing because so many freedom fighters are focused on it. And we need to be careful.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Yeah. So you guys, if you guys want to pick this up, we're going to be going to the Unchained. So just stay tuned. If you are on our platform, or if you want to watch the full Unchained, go to theflatouttruth.com and join the private platform, and we will continue this there. So our guests don't go anywhere. She's just going to stay right here. She can get her drink water, go to the bathroom while we sign off from TikTok, YouTube, Rumble, Facebook, and X. So we will see you guys Tuesday, right?
That's right. We'll be back on Tuesday.
Yeah.
8 p.m. Eastern time.
That's right. And again, I am Paulino B Michael.
I'm Chelsey B Michael.
And as always, be safe.
Be blessed.
And that's
the flat out truth.
Truth.